Hi, folks. Today's podcast has is on a topic that perhaps many of us don't even think about, and the topic is the two-faced leader. You know, the kind of person that uh, maybe comes in for a job interview for the COO, CFO, CEO position, some senior position, and they are to your face extremely kind, right? Generous and so on. And then after you've worked with them for a while, you see the other face, and they become, I'm going to use a strong word, but evil, because some of my clients have described them as being evil, where they are abusing their power. And in fact, it can be so strong, their abuse can be so strong that lives of the employees can be ruined. I almost had that happen to me many years ago when I was an employee, not in my own company. So, you know, what happens in cases like that is that due to this two-faced leader, people no longer have the freedom of choice or the freedom of speech because they don't know, they're afraid to speak the truth, because if they do, they don't know what this two-faced leader is going to do. You know, is he going to talk behind their back, or is he going to shoot them in the foot or whatever, right? So that's the discussion I'd like to open up here is you know, we let these leaders into our organizations, and sometimes we elect them. And what do we do with them? And so let's first talk about how their behaviors as a two-faced leader can affect the people. How do the people suffer? Raj, how do you think the people suffer under this kind of two-faced leader who is abusing his or her power?
The the first point, I think, if I am working with like this kind of leader, the first point, I will not work through my soul. I always feel fear in my heart because I always afraid, oh my God, if I have done any mistake, if I have done any wrong commitment by mistake, so what will my future in this organization, any company, any corporate company, anywhere? So your mental peace will completely out of the way. First point. Second point, you will always afraid, so you will not perform the right performance, whatever job you are doing. Performance is also affect,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the mental health also suffer a lot.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you're
So
not yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yes, so you
Mm-hmm.
feel always in the pain in the home also, because whenever the when we are in the corporate job, for example, Marion, waiting for my answer in the mail, and I have fear, oh my God, my boss is so double faced. So if I'm not, for example, if I went for my some friend party, or like some my wife birthday, and like my kids other thing, good things, so I will not enjoy at that time because I have fear, oh my God, if I'm not reply the mail, or I not pick my call, so my next day will might be my end of the day. I think his crew in front of a lot of people, so I feel embarrassed. So these kind of things in my mind all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of mental trauma, some kind of.
It
So
can cause anxiety, right? Create a
yeah,
great deal of anxiety in your life. Yeah.
and
It's it
some serious issue in my life, or like I'm facing some problem, so I cannot discuss with him or her in front of, because I know he or she's a double face.
Mm-hmm.
At a same time, she or he in front of a lot of people, he or she is showing so much sympathy, and all of a sudden when the all the people move back, he or she have a different face. So I always
Mm-hmm.
feel very insecure. This is my
Mm.
opinion. What is Marion?
Wow.
Your opinion.
Yeah, I think, and both of you, what you said, I believe truly that is the case. It has an impact, a negative impact, not just on yourself and your health, but it has a ripple effect on anything else. And I've seen that many, many times, and actually have experienced something similar myself, where you would look at the phone in the morning at 5, 6 o'clock, wondering what was it today that this person didn't like, that somebody did on the team that you're trying to protect as a leader, and because they're trying the hardest, and certain things weren't their fault. And it's, it took me a long time to realize that this person really deep down was suffering, and that was the reason why she, in this case, was acting the way that she was acting. And the other piece to that I just want to point out is that those two phases come out when you have difficulty or challenges. Usually, like when things go well and everything goes well, you usually see the positive side. The question becomes, what happens when things don't go so well, when challenges come, when egos come into play? What happens then? And so to me, that's a good indication. I don't really look at what does somebody do when everything is great. I look at how do they act, how do they treat others when certain challenges come up. And I do believe that is a good measure to kind of evaluate and get a good sense of how that leader is acting, or what to expect. And I also want to encourage everybody, because sometimes it might seem like, oh, there's nothing I can do, I'm stuck in this situation. We're never stuck. We're really, truly never stuck. There's always a solution to that, and nobody should have to endure that. Nobody has to go through an experience where it has a prolonged effect on us and everybody around us. And quite frankly, that is why I started and launched the company the way I did, because I wanted to end that kind of anxiety and that kind of weak leadership in the corporate world.
Wow. Yes. So that, let's spend a couple minutes here on how does one deal with a two-faced leader? If you are an employee or you report to a two-faced leader, how do you deal with that person? And because the first thing people will say, well, I'm afraid to even stand up to this individual. I'm afraid I'm going to get fired, right? Well, Marion hit on a point there that the best thing we can do for this person is try and understand them, because we don't know why they are acting the way they are acting. Maybe they're being abused at home, or something has happened to them in their life, and they're just projecting, So I think the first thing we need to do is sit back and be compassionate with this person, with this two-faced leader, and say, okay, well, and try and really understand and ask questions around understanding. So if the leader does something that is absolutely obnoxious, right, to ask a gentle question about, what made them act that way, what made them ask that question, or whatever. So understanding is number one. Number two is asking. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because those types of leaders usually have very powerful voices and do as I say. They're dictators, yeah, on one side. So not be afraid to use your voice to ask questions, because when you start questioning them, you find your own power, and you're taking away some of their abusive power. Yeah, because you're trying to understand them. So how about the rest? How about the two of you? How would you deal with a two-faced leader?
So in my experience, Betska and Raj, I want to point that out, because I have dealt more, actually all, with women that abuse their power. And it was generally not because of their big appearance or their loud voice. It was emotional abuse. And very, still abuse. You can cut and slice it however you want to. If you are, you're in power and you're making others feel like they're less, they are at fault, they're fearing for their job. You don't have to be powerful and strong physically. There are many ways to do that. And I think I want everyone to understand that it's still abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do believe that it's very important to set boundaries, because in my experience, when you stand up for yourself in a respectful way and you set very clear boundaries, for one, I have seen sometimes these abusive leaders backing off somewhat and actually picking on those that showed less boundaries and that just kind of fed into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I want to encourage everyone who's listening here to stand up for what they believe and set those boundaries and clearly communicate and have respect for yourself. Because if you don't have the respect for yourself, it's very difficult to expect that respect from somebody else. And unfortunately, that is what I have experienced. Oftentimes, those are the people that are being chosen to be abused. And so from that perspective, just a couple of little things that I think are important to keep. And you might wonder, or you might say, yeah, that's great, but then what if I lose my job? And I have seen examples where that was the best thing that could have happened.
Yes.
And I know it doesn't sound like that in the beginning, because you might have financial difficulty or, other implications that are very difficult to deal with. But in the bigger picture and overall, that was the best thing that could have happened.
Yeah. So, basically in summary here, we could create many podcasts on this topic, but I think in summary here, we should say that to be aware of the two-faced leader, when are they kind and when are they misusing their power? And Marion hit on a very important point, and it's about your own self-respect. To respect yourself and not take this abuse. There are ways to, as we've said, communicate with this person. And the bottom line is, when we learn how to communicate well with those people, all of a sudden they start to have more respect for you.
Yeah.
And for all the other people, right? It's almost like they're testing the water. So yeah, we just really want to encourage everyone to be aware of those types of leaders and to make sure that you take your freedom of choice and your freedom of speech. Keep it. Thank you.
Can anybody out there hear me? Hear me?